In 2018, over 2.6 million animals in the U.S. were killed by Wildlife Services. That year, the agency killed river otters, red foxes, prairie dogs, beavers, coyotes, and over 1 million birds. Wildlife Services, which is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, kills wildlife for a range of reasons, from increasing safety around airports, protecting against infectious disease, controlling invasive species populations, and also for protecting livestock. The agency exists to cater to human needs, but their methods are not exactly popular. So how are they killing these animals in the masses? They ensnare animals in traps, shoot them from helicopters, and hunt them in their dens. Officials might smoke the animals out before killing them or gas the animals while they sleep. But officials also bomb animals with poison, using a controversial weapon called an M44. It triggers a release of sodium cyanide, which leads to a quick but violent death. In 2018, over 5,600 coyotes were killed by M44s, the device's main target. While the agency has drawn criticism for its lethal methods and mission for decades, the cyanide bomb, or the M44, is reaching new heights of controversy after a teenage boy and his dog set off an M44 near their home in Idaho in 2017.
The Pocatello family lost their dog, and their son is lucky to be alive tonight after a cyanide explosion outside of their home.
The boy was injured, then watched his dog die.
By the grace of God, I'm still alive.
Some states have banned the use of this weapon, but it remains authorized in others. But the coyotes, the animal targeted by the M44, is part of a booming population and now roams across the entire continent despite the use of these poisonous bombs. What we know today as Wildlife Services began in 1885 as the Division of Economic Ornithology. Its goal was to help farmers understand the economic value of birds in relation to farming. This was during the era of sweeping settlement in the western U.S., when settlers claimed land for agricultural purposes, and when the over 30 million bison that once roamed the land were hunted to near extinction. By the end of the century, mule deer, pronghorn, and elk were also depleted in vast numbers. Predators like wolves thrived on a plethora of dead bison, but only briefly. With the populations of their prey significantly reduced and livestock ranchers moving in on western land, these predators naturally turned to livestock, sheep and cattle that ranchers depended on for their livelihoods. So the agency shifted. It was renamed the Bureau of Biological Survey, just one of several more titles it would hold over the years, and turned toward animal control for ranchers. By 1920, a lab specializing in poison production, called the Eradication Methods Laboratory, was opened in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Around the same time, the agency was successful in nearly eradicating wolves from the U.S.
The wolf, hunting in packs and terrorizing other creatures, including man.
But another highly adaptable predator would soon become the target of a mass poisoning campaign: the coyote. And as the opportunistic, adaptable predators they are, they also turn to livestock. Coyotes then became one of the most targeted animals in the U.S.'s campaign to eradicate predators from its lands. Congress even passed a $10 million bill in 1931 to aid the agency in coyote eradication. And soon, a device would be on the way to solve what was called the coyote problem. Invented by Fred and Ethel Marlman in the 1930s, it was called simply the Coyote Getter. It's a device that would eventually morph into the M44 we know today. Suddenly, government hunters were trapping and killing more coyotes than they did using traditional still traps. The device was shaped like a stake and was implanted into the ground with only part of the mechanism showing. Officials would then cover the weapon with bait like rabbit fur, and if an animal came sniffing towards it, and if the animal pulled it out of the ground by just a fraction of an inch, then the poison would be released via a .38 caliber cartridge into the animal's mouth. The animal would scurry away from the loud sound, but would soon die from the poison. But these coyote getters, widely used by 1940, caused one boy to lose an eye and another to lose his life. Humans were getting hurt, and the coyote getter would soon be phased out. But it looked like they worked. Between 1947 and 1956, the agency killed about 6.5 million coyotes in the American West, mainly via poisoning. By 1970, the switch to a new device, purportedly safer for humans, would be made official. Along came the M44 cyanide capsule, whose contents were expelled by the release of a spring-driven plunger instead of a cartridge. It releases 1 gram of orange powder, which turns into poison when it is mixed with saliva from the animal's mouth. The creature dies quickly, within 1 to 5 minutes. The device was controversial then. The use of all poison was at one point banned by a presidential order in 1972 by Richard Nixon. But a decade later, that order was revoked by Ronald Reagan. The device has since been planted on private and public land or authorized for use by state agencies in 13 states: Nevada, Utah, Montana, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Virginia, and West Virginia allow M44s. Colorado and Wyoming only allow M44s on private land. Today's M44 has been made safer for humans, but overall, using the device is simply efficient for wildlife services on the ground. Once the trap is set, officials only need to check in on it once a week until an animal is found dead. As the Sacramento Bee reported, between 1987 and 2012, 18 Wildlife Services agents were exposed to the poison, and between 2000 and 2012, 1,100 dogs were killed by the device. M44s have also killed other non-target species like foxes, raccoons, possums, skunks, and at least once, a black bear. In 2019, the M44 was banned by the Trump administration, but this decision was quickly reversed by December of the same year. But there's another piece to what makes this device especially controversial. While the device has made killing coyotes en masse easier, there is evidence that more killing does not equal fewer coyotes. In fact, it increases coyote populations. Despite the tens of thousands of coyotes killed every year, they have expanded their geographic range by 40% since the 1950s, which is twice as much as any other North American carnivore during the same period. This is because of a rebound effect, where coyotes are able to multiply quickly in the face of absent members of their pack. This means that coyotes will still bounce back even when as much as 70% of their population is killed by lethal control efforts. This is just one piece of the coyotes' boom in North America. Coyotes are now spotted in urban areas throughout the country.
Let's take a look at a very different kind of problem for New York City: coyotes.
The animal has proved incredibly adaptable as well as resilient against predator control campaigns. In one Department of Agriculture study, researchers even found that killing more predators did not decrease livestock lost. One study also noted eliminating predators does little to increase economic gains for livestock ranchers or to reduce attacks over the long term. What complicates the issue is that although the sheep industry supports several state economies throughout the U.S., the industry has been on the decline for decades.
When you're not out there on the landscape dealing directly with some of the things that can come up that can impact your personal life and your livelihood, it's really hard to understand what those folks are going through.
So while the Department of Agriculture also reports losses of sheep and cattle to predators is only a small percentage, 2% of cattle deaths were due to predators in 2015, and only 1.8% of sheep were killed by predators in 2014. It can still be devastating to ranchers. Producers lose in excess of $115 million in livestock annually to coyotes. While killing one coyote may seem like an immediate solution, it may not be sustainable in the long term to truly helping the ranchers who deal with this problem every day. States like Oregon, Washington, and California have moved to permanently ban M44s, while Idaho has had a temporary ban since 2017. There has also been bipartisan support on a nationwide ban on poison for predator control. This legislation has not passed. The Environmental Protection Agency has also responded to the controversy by laying out more restrictions. In addition, Wildlife Services allocated $1.3 million to research non-lethal control methods. Money will go towards hiring employees to conduct non-lethal methods like range riding, installation and maintenance of fencing and something called fladry, which features flags along a line of rope to scare away predators, presenting workshops, educational sessions, and outreach that promotes the best techniques for use of non-lethal methods. This also includes purchasing non-lethal tools and scare devices for immediate use and establishing loan programs for producers. In a statement provided to Cheddar by Wildlife Services, they pointed out the hard work that is done to ensure a balance between the needs of wildlife and people. They also stress that their goal is to reduce local damage, not to manage predator populations. As popular opinion shifts away from lethal control, many ranchers are doing the same. While the true effectiveness of these solutions remains to be studied, what they can do is stop the loss before it happens. Ending the use of the M44 is not going to bring an end to killing wildlife in the masses. But solutions going forward can value protecting both animals and people. Thank you so much for watching. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe and make sure to check out the links below if you want to know more about wildlife services and the boom of coyotes across North America.